I never thought a simple family dinner would become the moment that changed everything between me and my mother-in-law, Patricia. But sometimes life has a way of forcing you to stand up for yourself when you least expect it. It was a crisp October evening in suburban Chicago, and the leaves were painting the neighborhood in brilliant shades of amber and crimson. My husband Jake and I were heading to his parents' house for what was supposed to be a casual family dinner. "Nothing fancy," Patricia had said over the phone. "Just come as you are." I should have known better. With Patricia, nothing was ever as simple as it seemed. I'd chosen a beautiful navy blue midi dress that I'd found at a boutique downtown. It wasn't expensive, but it fit me perfectly and made me feel confident. The fabric was soft, the color complemented my skin tone, and it had these delicate pearl buttons that ran down the front. I felt good about myself, which, honestly, was something I'd been working on since marrying into Jake's family. You see, Patricia had never really warmed up to me. From the moment Jake first brought me home 3 years ago, she'd made it clear that I wasn't exactly what she'd envisioned for her precious son. I wasn't from the right neighborhood, didn't have the right degree, and apparently didn't have the right sense of style either. Jake, bless his heart, tried to shield me from his mother's passive-aggressive comments, but some things are impossible to miss. The way she'd purse her lips when I spoke, the subtle eye rolls when I shared stories about my work as a graphic designer, the way she'd always find something to criticize about my appearance. But tonight felt different. Maybe it was the way the autumn light caught the golden highlights in my hair. Or maybe it was just that I'd had a really good day at work. My latest project had been approved by a major client, and I felt like I was finally finding my groove professionally. I was determined not to let Patricia's usual antics get under my skin. As we pulled into the driveway of their pristine colonial home, I took a deep breath and smoothed down my dress. The house stood majestically behind its perfectly manicured lawn, every detail screaming upper-middle-class respectability. Jake squeezed my hand as we walked up the stone pathway. "You look beautiful," he whispered, kissing my cheek. "Don't let her get to you tonight, okay?" I smiled and nodded, but we both knew it was easier said than done. The front door opened before we could even knock, and there stood Patricia in all her glory. She was wearing what I'd learned to recognize as her casual dinner uniform. Perfectly pressed slacks, a silk blouse that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget, and jewelry that caught the porch light just so. Her silver hair was styled in that timeless bob that never seemed to move, no matter what the weather. "Jake, darling," she exclaimed, embracing her son with the kind of warmth I'd never experienced from her. Come in. Your father's in the living room watching the game." Then her eyes landed on me, and I watched her expression shift almost imperceptibly. It was like watching a mask slide into place. "Hello, dear," she said, her voice taking on that particular tone she reserved for me, polite but cold, like she was speaking to a stranger at a grocery store. We made our way into the living room where Jake's father, Robert, was indeed watching football. He was a kind man, much warmer than his wife, and he greeted me with a genuine smile and a hug. The living room was exactly what you'd expect from Patricia. Everything in its place, family photos arranged just so, and not a speck of dust anywhere. "Can I get you something to drink?" Patricia asked, playing the perfect hostess. "I'll have a glass of wine, thanks," I replied, settling onto the cream-colored sofa that I was always afraid to sit on for fear of somehow staining it. "Red or white?" she asked, but before I could answer, she was already moving toward the kitchen. "Actually, let me just bring you white. Red might be risky with that fabric." There it was, the first subtle dig of the evening. I felt my cheeks warm, but I forced myself to smile. Jake shot me an apologetic look, but he was already deep in conversation with his father about some business deal. Patricia returned with the wine, and we made small talk about the weather, the neighborhood, anything safe and neutral. But I could feel her eyes on me, studying my dress, my hair, my makeup. It was like being under a microscope. "That's an interesting dress," she finally said, settling into her chair with her own glass of wine. "Very bold color choice, thank you," I replied, though I wasn't sure it was meant as a compliment. "Where did you get it?" she continued, and I could hear the loaded question beneath her seemingly innocent inquiry. "There's a cute boutique downtown that I love," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "They have such unique pieces." "Ah," she said, nodding slowly. "Downtown. How eclectic." The conversation continued like this for several more minutes, with Patricia making these tiny comments that felt like paper cuts. Each one was small enough that calling her out would make me seem oversensitive, but together they were death by 1,000 cuts. Then Jake's sister Emma arrived with her husband and their 2 kids. Emma had always been kind to me, but she was also very much her mother's daughter when it came to fashion and appearances. She walked in wearing a gorgeous designer dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. "Oh my God, Mom, you look amazing," Emma exclaimed, hugging Patricia. "Is that the new Eileen Fisher you were telling me about?" Patricia beamed, clearly pleased with the attention. "It is. I just couldn't resist when I saw it in the store." Then Emma turned to me with a bright smile. "And you look lovely too. That dress is so fun." Fun. Another loaded word that somehow made me feel like I was wearing a costume to a serious event. We all moved to the dining room for dinner, and I thought maybe the worst was over. Patricia had set the table with her good china, the kind that made you nervous to eat off of it. Everything was perfect, from the carefully arranged flowers to the gleaming silverware. But as we were sitting down, Patricia suddenly stopped and looked at me with this expression of horror, like she'd just noticed something terrible. "Oh my," she said, her voice carrying just a little too well across the room. "I'm so sorry, dear, but I just realized your dress is almost exactly the same color as my dining room curtains." The room went silent. Everyone turned to look at me, then at the curtains, then back at me. And she was right. My beautiful navy blue dress was virtually identical to the heavy drapes hanging behind me. "I'm so embarrassed," Patricia continued, her voice dripping with fake concern. "I should have warned you about the color scheme in here. You practically disappear into the background. It's like you're wearing camouflage." A few people chuckled nervously, not sure if they should laugh or not. Emma looked mortified on my behalf, but she didn't say anything. Robert was suddenly very interested in his napkin. And Jake was looking at his mother with this expression I'd never seen before, like he was seeing her clearly for the first time. I felt my face burning with embarrassment. Every eye in the room was on me, comparing me to the curtains, seeing exactly what Patricia wanted them to see. That I didn't belong, that I didn't know how to dress appropriately, that I was somehow less than. "I think it's a beautiful dress," Jake said firmly, reaching for my hand under the table. But Patricia wasn't done. "Oh, of course it is, darling. It's just unfortunate about the color matching. Maybe next time we should coordinate better. I'd be happy to help you pick something out that would work better with our decor." That was it. That was the moment when something inside me snapped. I excused myself politely, saying I needed to use the restroom. But as I walked up those perfectly carpeted stairs, my mind was racing. I wasn't just hurt anymore. I was angry. Angry at Patricia for her constant subtle cruelty, angry at myself for putting up with it for so long, and angry at the whole situation. But then, as I stood in their guest bathroom looking at myself in the mirror, something shifted. I wasn't going to let her win. Not tonight. I pulled out my phone and called my best friend Sarah, who lived just 15 minutes away. "Sarah, I need a huge favor," I whispered into the phone. "Remember that gorgeous black dress you let me borrow for your company party last month? The one I never gave back? The little black Diane von Furstenberg? Yeah, it's in my closet. Why? Can you bring it to me? I'm at Jake's parents' house, and I need it. Now." "What's wrong? Are you okay?" I quickly explained what had happened, and Sarah, being the amazing friend she is, didn't ask any more questions. "I'll be there in 10 minutes. Text me the address." While I waited, I took a good look at myself in the mirror. Patricia was right about one thing. The navy dress did blend in with those curtains, but that wasn't my fault, and it certainly wasn't something to be ashamed of. I was a beautiful woman who deserved to be treated with respect. I heard the doorbell ring downstairs, and Patricia's voice calling out in confusion. "Who could that be? We're not expecting anyone else." I quickly made my way downstairs and intercepted Sarah at the door. "Emergency fashion delivery," she announced cheerfully, holding up a garment bag. Patricia looked bewildered. "I'm sorry. Who are you?" "Sarah, nice to meet you," my friend said with a brilliant smile. "I'm just dropping something off for your daughter-in-law." The look on Patricia's face was priceless. She clearly didn't know how to handle this unexpected development. I took the dress from Sarah and headed back upstairs. "I'll just be a minute," I called over my shoulder. In the bathroom, I carefully hung up my navy dress and slipped into the black one. It was stunning. A classic wrap style that hugged my curves in all the right places, with 3/4 sleeves and a hemline that hit just above my knees. The fabric was luxurious, the cut was perfect, and it made me feel like $1,000,000. But I wasn't done. I touched up my makeup, adding a bold red lip that I'd been carrying in my purse. I let my hair down from its neat bun and tousled it slightly for a more glamorous look. I stood back and looked at myself in the mirror. The woman looking back at me was confident, beautiful, and ready to reclaim her dignity. When I walked back into the dining room, the conversation stopped mid-sentence. Every head turned toward me, and I could see the shock on their faces. Gone was the woman who blended into the curtains. In her place stood someone who commanded attention. "I hope you don't mind," I said, my voice steady and clear. I realized Patricia was absolutely right about the color coordination, so I thought I'd change into something more appropriate for the occasion. Jake's mouth literally fell open. Emma gasped. Robert raised his eyebrows in what looked like appreciation. And Patricia? Patricia looked like she'd swallowed her tongue. "I called my friend Sarah to bring over this little number," I continued, doing a small turn to show off the dress. "It's Diane von Furstenberg, and I think it works much better with your beautiful decor, don't you think?" The silence stretched on for what felt like an eternity. Then Emma started to clap. "Oh my God, you look absolutely stunning," she exclaimed, and suddenly everyone was talking at once. "That dress is incredible," Robert said, nodding appreciatively. "You look like a movie star," added Emma's husband. Even the kids chimed in with compliments. But it was Jake's reaction that meant the most to me. He stood up from his chair and walked over to me, taking my hands in his. "You are the most beautiful woman in this room," he said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "And I'm the luckiest man alive." Patricia finally found her voice. "Well," she said, her tone carefully controlled, "that's certainly a dramatic improvement." But I wasn't going to let her have the last word. Not tonight. "You know, Patricia," I said, turning to face her directly, "I really appreciate your concern about my appearance. It made me realize something important." She raised an eyebrow, clearly not sure where I was going with this. "I realized that I've been so focused on trying to fit in, on trying to make everyone else comfortable, that I forgot to be comfortable with myself. This dress?" I gestured to my outfit. "This is who I am. Someone who can roll with the punches, who can adapt and overcome, and who doesn't need anyone's approval to feel beautiful." The room was completely silent now. Even the kids had stopped talking. "I love your son," I continued, looking directly at Patricia. "And I love being part of this family. But I'm not going to apologize for who I am anymore. I'm not going to shrink myself to make other people feel bigger." Patricia's face went through a series of expressions: surprise, anger, and then something that looked almost like respect. She started, then stopped. For the first time since I'd known her, Patricia seemed at a loss for words. Emma broke the silence by raising her wine glass. "To confidence," she said, looking at me with genuine admiration. "And to women who aren't afraid to change the game." Everyone raised their glasses, including, after a moment's hesitation, Patricia. The rest of the evening was different. The conversation flowed more naturally, and I found myself actually enjoying Patricia's company for the first time. She didn't become warm and fuzzy overnight, but there was a shift in how she looked at me, how she spoke to me. As we were getting ready to leave, Patricia pulled me aside. "That was quite a performance tonight," she said quietly. "It wasn't a performance," I replied. "It was just me finally deciding to be myself." She studied my face for a long moment. "Perhaps I underestimated you." "Perhaps you did." She almost smiled. "That dress really is stunning." "Thank you. I'll be sure to wear it again." As Jake and I drove home that night, I felt lighter than I had in months. I'd stood up for myself without being cruel or disrespectful. I'd shown grace under pressure and turned a humiliating situation into a moment of triumph. "I'm proud of you," Jake said, reaching over to squeeze my hand. "You handled that perfectly." "I'm proud of me too," I replied, and I meant it. The next morning, I woke up to a text from Emma. "Mom hasn't stopped talking about your dress. I think you made quite an impression." But the real surprise came a few days later, when Patricia called me directly. Not Jake, but me. "I wanted to apologize," she said without preamble. I was unnecessarily critical the other night, and you handled it with more grace than I deserved. I was so shocked I nearly dropped the phone. Thank you for saying that. I also wanted to ask where you got that black dress. I may need to update my wardrobe. I laughed, and for the first time, she laughed too. Looking back, that night changed everything. Not because I wore a different dress, but because I finally learned to stand up for myself with confidence and grace. I learned that respect isn't something you can demand. It's something you earn by respecting yourself first. And Patricia? She's still Patricia. Proper, particular, and occasionally cutting. But she's also become someone I can have a real conversation with. Someone who respects the woman I am, rather than trying to mold me into who she thinks I should be. The navy dress is still hanging in my closet, and I still love it. But now it reminds me of something important. It's not about what you wear or how you look. It's about how you carry yourself, how you respond to challenges, and how you choose to show up in the world. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply refuse to be diminished by someone else's narrow view of who you should be. Sometimes the best revenge is living well, standing tall, and never, ever letting anyone make you feel small. That night, I didn't just change my dress, I changed my life. And every time I wear that black Diane von Furstenberg, I remember the woman who found her voice in a bathroom mirror and decided she was worth fighting for.